How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Godzilla Rivals Round 1. This is a trade paperback collecting what was initially a series of one-shots featuring Godzilla going up against one of his greatest monster opponents. In this volume, we collect Godzilla vs. Hedorah, King Ghidorah, Mothra, and Battra. And overall, these stories are pretty fun. I do like each comic does feature some really fun panels of the monsters fighting each other, and they really do look like how the creatures appeared in the movies of the time period they're referencing. And I think it is really cool. I think this is set in like the Millennium era, but correct me if you know more about Godzilla than I do. But I liked the jumping through different time periods and jumping between different places and characters. It really did lead to a good variety in the stories. All of the stories try to, actually do something different with the human characters and give them some choices, but also showing the sort of situations that surround each one of them. In particular, the last story actually takes place in the not-too-distant future, and it really is cool to see that world and how people react to the monsters there. There's lots of interesting stuff. Obviously, not all the stories hit it out of the park 100%, and some are better than others, but even the worst stories in here I do think have something relatively interesting. Like the worst ones in here aren't bad by any means, and overall I thought this was really fun. Some really interesting stories set in the Godzilla universe. It's cool stuff, and I definitely would recommend checking this out, and it's probably a pretty good way to get into the Godzilla comics. Anyway, if you want to see some of the stories, some of the art, and individual reviews for each of the stories in here, let's switch to the close-up camera and I'll go into more detail. No major spoilers though, but a deeper analysis. Let's switch to the close-up camera. Alright, here we are inside the castle taking a closer look at Godzilla Rivals Round 1. Again, really love that it's Round 1 instead of Volume 1 because it's fighting, But also the stone and the fire. Cool logo design. And we have a nice portrait of the monsters, how they looked in the movies at the time. Love the cover. It's actually a wraparound, and on the back we get King Ghidorah. The king of the monsters does not go unchallenged. Here's a bit of a summary of the book, and we get to see that this is $19.99 US and put out by IDW. And if we crack it open, I love the inner cover. Godzilla breathing the red fire. That's pretty cool. And if you read the book, you'll find out why he does this. And same red glowing Godzilla is on the credits page. And we get to see this has Godzilla vs. Hedorah, King Ghidorah, Mothra, and Battra. We can also see that there are different writers and artists for each volume. And if you want to pause it and read the credits here, that's where you can do so. Anyway, we also get, to denote where each story begins, we get a virgin version of the A cover, and the B cover will be placed at the end. Also, at the end of the book, we will get a few more covers as bonus features, and they're really fun. Like, look at King Ghidorah there. That's awesome. And, all the covers for this series really did work out pretty well, and I really do like them. Anyway, after that, let's talk about each of the stories. No major spoilers, but I do want to talk a little bit about each one. I'll show you guys some of the story, some of the art, but I won't cover the end or anything like that. Anyway, first one we open up, Godzilla vs. Hedorah, New York City, 1971. The city's destroyed, and we get a yellow box. We'll find out that this is from the scientist character, and she's kind of musing on life. She says monsters are animals. They don't have to make decisions like us humans do, and she'll say that in the coming issue, characters are going to have to make big, hard decisions. And we find out that the monsters are fighting in the city, and then there's this little ambulance amongst all this chaos. And inside the ambulance, is going to be this doctor. She is studying kaiju, and this ambulance driver is going to do whatever he can to save her, because if he saves her, that might mean she finds out how to stop these monsters in the future. So what do you do and what do you sacrifice if that is your potential prize? So yeah, that's the choices, and that's why he's driving this ambulance and almost getting squished by Godzilla. There's lots of fun monster fighting sequences in here. They really do a good job. You know, Godzilla ripping off Hedorah's eye, and then you get this fun sequence where they crash into it, and then even though it's just a tiny little bit, a bit gets on his shoe and he has to throw it off because Hedorah is so toxic. But yeah, a lot of this is the doctors drifting in and out of conscious, trying to survive in the city while all this is going on around her. And if she does make it through, maybe she can help the future. I will say there are some fun twists and turns in the story, and it actually does lead to some surprisingly dark moments and choices the characters have to make. All that being said, though, why I did like where the story went at the end, it didn't 100% match, because you get, you know, characters calling each other funny names and some bright cartoony artwork. I kind of wish that this story was so more dark and dreary, because it's going to be about making tough decisions, and I kind of wish the rest of the story played into that a little better, because it does, like, these dark moments really do feel like they're coming out of nowhere, but still an interesting enough story. After that, Godzilla vs. Mothra, and now we're in Lake Akita in 1984. So yeah, the 80s, a different decade and a different location. And it turns out there's this fisherman, and he sees a big glow coming from this lake. We then cut to the army, and we find out that with the army is this photojournalist, and she's just supposed to be doing a puff piece. But it turns out when the general hears about this glow, he's going to say, whatever it is, let's just bomb it, destroy it, and don't worry about it. And that's going to get the photojournalist's suspicions up, even though she doesn't really have any power in this situation. And I do like, you know, they talk about, the general says, these are just animals, we can't think of them like humans, which they said in the last story. But the last story, they were kind of wishing that people were more like that, but here they're saying it's a reason why we shouldn't trust them. So it's a different view on the same subject. But of course she's going to dive down and investigate the glow herself, and that's where she'll find Mothra is all chained up. Now she doesn't have the tools to free Mothra at the moment, because all she's got is this knife. But it turns out the JSDF, the army she's doing the puff piece for, is the one that locked Mothra up. They're trying to get a containment on the monsters, and it turns out that it's not just Mothra. Godzilla is coming towards the base about to wreak havoc. And so what does she do? You know, if the government put Mothra there, it's not likely that the government will just let Mothra out. So what can she do? What choices does she make against the backdrop of a larger opposing threat? Oh, and also, we get the little Mothra girl showing up. That's pretty cool. Overall, a fun story, and some good monster moments. Don't worry, those are in there as well. Anyway, after that, Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. Get it? He's a king, so we have a playing card this time. But Tokyo, 1996. And right off the bat, we are going nuts. Alien spaceships are destroying all the landmarks, and we do get this fighter pilot character trying to save the day, but it's kind of futile. And Godzilla will show up and attack the aliens. Boy, this one goes nuts, and I absolutely love it. All the spaceships get together and form a cannon that can actually harm Godzilla, and then what do you know? Godzilla is abducted by aliens, and we get to see the fighter pilot just kind of looking up in awe. Yeah, Earth is not doing so well, and over the course of this invasion, because it takes quite a while, they're fighting back, they team up with an evil scientist, Dr. Hugh, who's like a supervillain, but, you know, the enemy of my enemy. He'll help with the aliens. And he's made this android, and the android, while studying the alien technology, has made himself smarter, and he's experiencing emotions for the first time. The fighter pilot and the android team up, and they build a spaceship that can go to outer space, and they're going to the aliens' moon base in order to stop them. Yeah, this story goes nuts. And oh, yeah, on the moon, Godzilla's in a battle arena. That's really cool. We get to find out more about the aliens and what they're up to, and, you know, there is a bunch of lore, and I do like that. There they are watching them fight. But also, Godzilla is monster 1999. Who's their very first monster? Their monster 0? Well, that will be King Ghidorah. And of course, I mean, it's a monster arena. Yeah, this is one that just goes nuts and has fun and embodies the campier, over-the-top Godzilla. And yeah, I don't know, that might be my favorite story in here. Anyway, after that, we jump to Hackney-on-the-Sea in 2027 for Godzilla vs. Battra. And I will say, 2027, this comic came out in 2023. That's only a few years in the future. I think the idea is this is the future that the Millennium Era Godzilla saw. Like, this is the future as perceived by the 90s. Still, it is kind of strange. But yeah, we get this desolate town rife with pollution and little robots crawling around. We get a girl that lives there, and it turns out she is into monsters and has her conspiracy board and everything. And we find out that monsters at this time, people think, oh, maybe they were legends or overplayed or something. But we get her friend, this little kid with roller skates. Yeah, the characters are a little wacky in this one. But her friend says that there was a signal that talked about Battra being here, and even though the signal's old, maybe Battra is still around hiding someplace. Oh, and Grandma's a character there too, that's pretty fun. But they'll look around, there's this whole sequence with, you know, earthquakes and, you know, the weather. It's not looking too good for this city, things are crumbling. And when they finally figure out where Battra is, that's right before he breaks open the ground and comes out. A really cool image of him behind the church there. So yeah, a giant monster has appeared after all these years, and one element I really like that they throw in is you get how people react to it on the news, and you get this guy who's leading essentially a cult of people saying humanity was the problem, we should let the monsters kill us, and the news reporter refers to this guy as an eco-fascist, to which is a term I've never heard before, but I immediately understand what it means. And I do like, you know, the idea of this is in part how people react to something so big coming out of nowhere. And I mean, like, we recently had that whole eclipse thing, and people were freaking out about that. Yeah, kind of a good point in time to read this story. But yeah, you have Battra looming over the city, and you have, of course, Godzilla starting to show up, and what can the little tiny humans do about it, if anything? Well, there is a fun plot with the humans, there is a surprise thing that happens towards the end, and of course there is giant monster action as always. Overall, I think the last two stories, I think I like the third and the fourth one the best, but even when this comic isn't as good, it's still pretty fun. It does a good job of creating cool and original stories set across different times and places, but also giving us just a giant monster slugfest. Overall, a really fun book. I really did enjoy it, and probably a good place to start with Godzilla Comics, getting a little sampling of several different things. Overall, I can definitely recommend it. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Godzilla playlist, where you can see my reviews for Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire, Godzilla -1, as well as a few other Godzilla and Kong comics. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.